Hi, everybody. I'm Matthew Dixon, bringing you the latest traders report for 3.0 TV. So the markets are in a bit of flux at the moment, not quite sure where to go. And that's because we've got a rate decision coming up this Wednesday, just a couple of days now to wait until we know where rates are going, whether they're basically going to stay on hold or whether they're going to cut rates. So the big influence is going to be, I think, inflation on Wednesday. That's the day of the rate decision. So we've got core inflation, CPI, and expectations are that we may see a bit of a small reduction in CPI. But looking at core inflation, that could actually rise slightly, we can see here, from 0.2, the expectation is 0.3 month on month. So let's see what that is. This is going to be very, very important. Core inflation is expected to stay the same year on year at 3%, which is, of course, 1% above the target rate for the Fed, the Fed's target rate being 2%. We've also got some employment figures, and then inflation, as I say, the month on month, we're looking at possibly a small reduction in inflation, which will be good news and probably give a bit more power to those who are looking for a rate cut. So we're highly likely to see a rate cut. The Fed rate decision is at 2300 in the, that's at Dubai time, actually, 2300. And they're expecting a cut from 4% to 3.75%. But I think that's nailed on. We'll see in a moment. We'll look at the Fed Watch tool and just see what the odds are of that cut. It is looking as though it's going to be a cut of 25 basis points. So that being the majority expectation at the moment, the rate decision itself probably won't make a big difference. But what will make a difference is the FOMC economic projections and the press conference, the Fed press conference later, where Fed Chair Powell answers questions from the press, sometimes hopefully probing questions that will give some indication as to where rates are going to go in the future. So here's the Fed Watch tool. Again, looking forward to Wednesday. We're seeing 87.2% chance at the moment for a 25 basis point cut and just 12.8% chance of a hold. So it's almost nailed on. We're going to get that cut. So if we see the cut, it's probably not going to have a massive impact on markets. But there's still a bit of uncertainty, and that's why markets are a little bit uncertain at the moment, a bit choppy. So let's look at Bitcoin first of all. And it's quite interesting to see from the all-time high there, you can actually see we've got a first wave down there, which I've labeled as wave 1 or wave A. Then we've got an ABC up for wave 2. That's typical 3-wave correction for wave 2. Or wave B, of course. It could be either still at the moment. And then we've got the next big wave down goes to exactly 1.618 times that first wave. So we measured the first wave. We transposed that measurement to the top of the second wave. And the 1.618, which is, of course, the golden ratio, is the almost exact point where we went to with price. So the big question at the moment is this 1, 2, 3, or is it ABC? And that has massive implications going forward for price expectations. If it's 1, 2, 3, then this is just a corrective wave 4, which can't go into the territory of wave 1, which is 103,000 and something. So that would be the limit of how high it can go. So that would be basically 1, 2, 3, potentially wave 4. And then we'd have a fifth wave down, taking us quite a bit lower. If that happens, then we've basically got a 5-wave impulse from the top. That's actually quite negative, and it would mean that after a further 3-wave correction, we get another big dip lower. So if we count this as 1, 2, 3, then coming up 4 and 5, that would be extremely bearish for Bitcoin. It would probably or quite possibly mean that this was the very top of this cycle. And actually, that does fit in with timing of cycles, to be fair. So it's a real possibility, but I'm hoping and possibly expecting that this time might be a little bit different. There's not been a long time to establish cycles for Bitcoin, even though we've had a few halving events now, probably not enough to establish a proper cycle. And things may be different this time round because we've got so much more institutional interest with the ETFs and institutions now allowed to invest, even pension funds looking to invest into Bitcoin now. So it could be different this time round. And that difference could be reflected if we have, instead of 1, 2, 3, it could be ABC. So if it's ABC, that is a completed correction. The C wave being 1.618 times the A wave is actually quite a reasonable, common expectation for a C wave. So that's perfectly reasonable. So we could have finished there. And don't forget, we do have this capitulation wick here, where price tested lower but failed and went almost immediately higher. And we had this hidden bullish divergence where we've got basically higher lows in price and lower lows in corresponding RSI. So that's a couple of relatively bullish signs there. And we do actually, what we would have to read it as then, if this is ABC, we then have to read this as wave 1 up, 2 down. Then within wave 3, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that would then be 1, 2, pushing up on wave 3 now of 3. So it could actually be, if we get dovish commentary out on Wednesday, that could be really bullish and could give us that Christmas rally that I'm actually still expecting. I'm still bullish Bitcoin despite the uncertainty at the moment and despite the different potential wave counts. I'm still bullish, and despite this, where we are in the cycle as well, I do think it's going to be different this time around. I think we're going to see a great Christmas rally personally. I think we're going to see new all-time highs for Bitcoin and for some other crypto assets. But right now is probably not the right time to be jumping in because there is so much uncertainty ahead of this Fed rate decision. We could have jumped in at the 1.618 down here, certainly with a good risk reward there. You could have a stop loss just below and potential for much higher. But right now, there's so much uncertainty. We're right almost middle of the range here between the invalidation up here and the, I suppose, invalidation down here as well. So we're right between the two invalidations in no man's land. So, it's really probably not the best time to take a position. Let's wait. Well, I say let's wait. But personally, I'll be waiting until close to the rate decision, just see what happens with prices between now and then. And you just need to see where price is as to make your decision. And then obviously be data dependent and see what the data comes out as, not just the data, which is going to be almost definitely a rate cut, but what the expectations are from the press conference, etc. So that's Bitcoin. As I say, a lot of uncertainty. It's actually reflected across the board. Even if you look at Ethereum here, we can see a very similar situation. It looks to me to be very choppy. I mean, for example, the movement up here overlaps the movement down here, and even, overlaps everywhere, overlaps this movement down. So lots and lots of overlap there. So I'm actually, as I say, I'm optimistic that we are going to see new all-time highs for Bitcoin and again here for Ethereum. So I'm expecting Ethereum probably by perhaps around Christmas time. It's quite possible that by Christmas we could see a new all-time high above 5,000 for Ethereum. That's my hope and my expectation. For XRP, again, you can see here, I haven't drawn a line on down here, but basically this is regular bullish divergence here. From that very point there, we had a capitulation wick and we had some nice green candles. And then we've had what looks like some kind of corrective move down. So I'm expecting a new push higher for XRP. So all in all, at the moment, things are looking bullish. Solana, again, looking, actually, it's a little bit uncertain again with Solana because this movement here does look kind of corrective. But again, it could be just like Bitcoin, could be a 1-2-1-2, and we could be about to explode higher. So when I see something like this, which does look corrective, but I've really got some doubts about it when it's quite that clearly apparently corrective. Nothing is actually very clear cut when it comes to trading. You've got to use a lot of interpretation, look at correlations across the board, and look at other indications that might give you some better direction. So I'm actually, as I say, quite bullish. I think that, it's traditionally we tend to get a Christmas rally. We've got lower interest rates coming. There's actually, I won't go into it now, but on the Fed Watch tools, actually after this cut, which is highly likely, there's possibly 3 more cuts. In fact, priced in 3 more cuts next year. So much lower interest rate environment. It means the monetary conditions will be stimulative, will be quite easy. And don't forget, we've finished quantitative tightening. That is, QT has ended now. So liquidity is going to improve. So actually, there's a lot of signs there that things are going to look better. So I am bullish. I'm really looking forward to some movement higher. I did mention Jasmy. Jasmy has really hit some, if I go into long term, let me just go where the weekly is enough. I mean, that'll do for now. We're at a sort of long-term support around this sort of area. It's not a very bullish looking chart, to be fair, but from around this level, we would actually probably expect there to be a bounce. There have been many bounces in the past, from around these sort of levels. So I'm expecting to be a bounce, but I'm not necessarily Jasmy driven, but possibly driven by Bitcoin leading the field higher. So a rising tide lifts all boats, as they say. Same with, well, not the same quite with Litecoin, but again, we do have, to be fair, it looks corrective higher from here. It's a very, very corrective, uncertain looking pattern. But I just think looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP and Solana, I do think that rising tide will lift all the boats. So let's just flip over to DXY, the dollar index. We have bounced off that long-held support from 2009 when Bitcoin was born, and dollar has been rising, Bitcoin has been rising. But, we saw a bounce off support here, very, very important support, where we measured wave 1 down and transposed that to the top of wave 2. The wave 3 was precisely 4.236. Another beautiful Fibonacci relationship there. But I think that we've now had an ABC 4, and I think this easier monetary policy with lower interest rates coming and further to come, I think we're going to actually break through that long-held support for the dollar index. And I think that weaker dollar will probably be a bit of a stimulus short-term, at least, for Bitcoin, and power us that new all-time high that I'm expecting. So I don't expect this support here to hold for very long now, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's highly likely we're going to break this long-held multi-year support. And when that happens, then we need to look a lot lower potentially for the dollar, but that will ease monetary conditions. And I think that we will see higher with, as I say, the rest. Finally, I'll finish with pound dollar. Pound dollar I often use, I'll go into a slightly shorter time frame here. I often use pound dollar as it's actually highly correlated with crypto, with Bitcoin in particular. It really is. If you track them together, it's amazing. So with the pound against the dollar, we had a clear ABC down, and actually the C wave was almost precisely, let me just see where I measured that from. Okay, 1 point. Yeah, okay, I measured this wave down here and then transposed to here. So 100% of that wave down gave me that wave down. So it looks like, actually, rather than ABC, it looks like a WXY. It's 333. So this should be labeled W, this should be labeled X, and this should be labeled Y. And that would be a complete WXY correction. That's a double correction. And then from there, we expect higher. Now, I said this is directly correlated with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So as we rise higher, I'd expect Bitcoin and crypto to rise with it. So the pound is looking to correct from this WXY to actually go impulsively higher now, to beyond this level, to beyond this local high here. So to push higher, and that should move in correlation, direct correlation with Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. So all in all, I'm actually bullish, although, as I say, it's not an ideal time to take a position. Probably wait and see. If you wanted to gamble a little bit, basically just bear in mind it is a gamble from these levels. We are middle of the range with Bitcoin and so on. So could go either way. But as I say, personally, I'm bullish, and I would actually wait for, if we get a dip around the rate decision, or maybe even just before the rate decision, I'll probably be looking to jump in. I actually almost jumped in yesterday when Bitcoin dropped down to 88,000. Wish I had, but I didn't. So I'll be sitting on my hands just waiting for potentially lower prices, but we could actually just push higher from here. So hope that helps. Look forward to catching up with you again after the rate decision on Wednesday. But I will be on my X feed at MD Trade during the day on Wednesday, updating you, and actually through the rate decision itself, just to look at the implications there. So thanks so much for listening, and look forward to catching up again soon. Bye for now.